All right, stand by. Roll sound.
Speed.
Roll camera.
Speeding.
Slate.
Scene one, take one, mark.
And action. Hey everybody, how you doing? Burnies Applebox today, Friday at 2 o'clock. Every Friday we're here and we got a great guest today. You know, before I introduce him, let me tell you a phrase that I heard on set the other day. Production is like prison. Everyone can tell you how they got in, but very few people can tell you when they're going to get out. I think I might have found an exception to that a little bit here, but my guest today is John Nelson.
Good to be with you, Bernie.
Oh, thank you so much for coming, John. I really, really appreciate it.
I'm glad you got me some clothes so I didn't have to wear that jumpsuit.
Yeah, that's fine.
With the stripes.
The one that says production on the back.
Production prison.
Yeah, production prison. Yes, and you know, of course, we joke about this, but you know, everybody that I know that's in production stays in production. There's very few people who make a transition out of it. There's a few I've met and know, mostly for financial reasons, I'll say, and mostly because it was sort of a larger family business that they came from, and most of them went back to it. So I just think our business and I think our industry is so welcoming to people who can make a success out of it that there's very little reason to ever leave. But and I don't want to focus on that because I know you still actually, nobody ever totally gets out of production. Everybody knows production. You have your brain trust and everything like that, of that you do it. But you're one of the few people who I know that was very successful in production and then allowed your other interest to take you places that you wanted to go. And I find that fascinating because I think about it myself, you know.
And it's a little bit selfish, the reason why I've gravitated away. I did not want to meet you in front of the old folks' home, however many years from now, in a rocking chair, saying I've only done one thing.
Yeah.
Because I really have only done one thing in my life. A lot of things in the production industry,
Sure.
different roles, and all on the tech side,
Sure.
for the most part. And we live in probably the most freest society in the world. We don't have to ask government permission to move across country or to change careers, and
Right.
it's like, I want to try something else.
Yeah, I find that exciting, John. I really do. I find that exciting coming from the point of view, and of course I know you well enough to know a little bit of the backstory too. But first, let me hear, how did you get into production? Who were you and where were you at?
Oh, my grandfather, and how I get into production is kind of like a series of steps that I could not have forecasted.
Yes.
My grandfather on my dad's side immigrated from Sweden right around the turn of the 19th century when he was 16.
Okay.
During the Depression, he became an electrician, wiring houses for the first time, changing over from gas lighting to electrical lighting.
Yes.
In the Depression.
So that was during the Depression that sort of that made the transition to the electric bulb.
For him at least,
Yeah.
yes. He had a small crew of guys. He didn't even own a truck. He took materials to the job on a bicycle. But when I was in 6th grade, however, what is,
Whatever that math
a wee
is.
young thing,
Yeah.
he rewired our house.
Okay.
And obviously he did some work during the day, but every day after I got home from school for 2 or 3 hours, I would be in the electrical box.
You were working with Grandpa in there, and
Exactly.
he was showing you what to do.
And every day it was, turn off the power, test to make sure this. He was over and over and over asking me every day, what does this white wire do? What does the black wire do? 110 versus 208, 220
Oh,
in
that's
6th
great.
grade.
That's really, really awesome.
But what he told me is, I'm telling you how to do this for your own self at your own house. Don't ever do this as a living. And in a lot of ways, I didn't.
Yeah.
I held true to that.
Yeah.
But I went to a grade school, middle school, that had a college level theater set up.
Wow.
And my parents wanted me to learn how to act and be on stage, but I wanted to be up in the booth.
Sure.
And luckily, I was able to do that in like 7th and 8th grade.
Wow.
So I got to.
That's like a 1-2 punch right there. Learning electric and then learning the theater and that craft. That's
So I end up going to high school.
yeah.
The stage is at the end of the gymnasium. You know, not a traditional. I just left a much better theater. Get to the high school. They had put in a new lighting system that no one knows how to turn on. Literally. And
That's a basic right there. You should know how to turn the system on.
And they didn't have many lights. As I remember, it was a handful of Fresnels up on the ceiling of a gymnasium. So, you know, it's basically like the fluorescent lights of the gymnasium.
Sure.
So no one knew how to turn it on. And here I am, an incoming freshman, say, I know how to do that. And they're like, yeah, sure. Luckily, somehow someone let me in the cage, because it literally was a cage off the side of the stage. And I end up lighting the fall musical at the high school.
Wow.
And I remember I knew some people at a theater at a college that was associated with a church, and we, you know, got some lights from somewhere. And at the end of that fall, after the music, you know, you do all the practices and stuff. The choral director, who I had really no contact with, wasn't in any of her classes or anything. She said, my husband is in charge of the television broadcast at a local church. Would you like to come down and see it sometime?
Wow.
I said, sure.
Wow.
Fast forward to spring of my high school freshman year.
Okay.
I'm at the audio board, which is like for the sound reinforcement in the church, an hour live radio broadcast and an hour television show.
Wow.
With supervision in the beginning days, but certainly by that summer.
And you're like 15 years old or something, right?
I'm a rising sophomore in high school at this point. And once I was introduced to live television, never went back to theater.
Oh my
God.
God.
Now, later on, I kind of relit a couple theater shows that, you know, we were televising, because when I got really involved in the business, you couldn't just take cameras into a theater and make television, because there wasn't enough light. They weren't sensitive enough. So I knew stage left from stage right, and upstage and downstage, but that was about it.
So really early on, I mean, you were into this. Most kids don't accomplish that
I was
much.
working with professionals, because there were folks from the local television station that also worked on that broadcast.
Okay.
Late
they must
freshman year in high school.
They must have kept an eye on you too.
You know,
thinking here's a kid that's up and coming. Hey, maybe we can use him.
Take me. We got away with murder.
Yeah,
I mean, literally. I mean, stuff we couldn't do today.
Sure.
They'd take me up in the helicopter when they were doing news stories
Oh
and stuff.
my
So I flew in my
gosh.
first helicopter trip.
Oh my gosh, John! I had no idea about these stories. That's awesome.
So I was really. It was great.
Yeah.
And then I went to college for a short while. I dropped out.
What college did you go to?
I went to a small college in western North Carolina called Brevard College.
Okay, and is that where all this is happening in North Carolina?
No, this was South Florida.
South Florida?
Right, where I grew up in South Florida.
Okay.
Spent a lot of summers in western North Carolina. Went to school there for almost because I went 2 summer schools, and then the fall semester, I dropped out for a while.
Yeah.
And went back home to Florida. Ended up working in the construction industry.
Okay.
But also doing television on weekends and stuff. And you know.
And where were you doing the television on weekends? Where was it?
With the same folks.
With the church.
And,
Okay.
and because there were others involved in that production,
Sure.
I met a lot of other people.
Yeah.
And so I eventually went back to school. Didn't go to film production school. I went to business school.
That's smart. That's smart right
Partly
there.
because I was always interested in marketing.
Yeah.
I was always interested in the fact that, yes, we're entertaining, but, you know, these commercials are calling people to action. And how is that? So
How does that work? What is that? What's that all about? How do you get people to take action? Right?
And sort of, you know, you talk about leaving the industry. I sort of left it then, because when I left South Florida and to move to my second college, which was University of Richmond in Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, I thought, I'm not going to do TV anymore. I'm going to concentrate on business school and marketing and become someone that wears good clothes to work and doesn't cut their hands and things like that.
Yeah.
But by this point, I'd been out of school for about a year and a half, 2 years, and I realized on the weekends I had no money to go to Denny's to get breakfast at midnight.
You're right.
So what did I know how to do? So I went and got a job doing sound at the local PBS station.
Oh my.
And again, I
gosh.
walked in and they're like, "Sure, you can do this." It's like, no, I can't.
Yeah. So they didn't believe you either. Too young, no immediate experience.
But they gave me the chance.
That's awesome.
They gave me the chance, and I still remember their names and the people, and
Sure.
And then about a year and a half later, I realized, because I had stayed up there during the summers to work, but needed more days essentially.
Yeah.
And the lighting crew and camera crew worked more, because sound guys need to come in a couple hours ahead. But if
Right.
you're doing, well, back then it was telethons and things like that.
So they got a pre-light day.
Yeah, it's a
you
week,
got-
2
yeah.
weeks worth of work. So I
Sure.
gravitated toward the picture side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sound was my first love. And in fact, during college, I used to pick up some money freelancing on behind the board on sports trucks.
Gee.
So like B-level sports games, mainly baseball and wrestling, believe it or
Right.
not.
But you were able to make an income with this, and
While I was in school, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. That's great. So as it progressed on, and you said you and this was it caught my attention because it's very similar to what I did when I got into the business. Obviously, the lighting crew is the biggest crew on set generally, and that's where I gravitated to for the same reasons. And they work a day before usually, sometimes a strike after, a day after, and you just get more work. Plus, for me, this was the thing, is like, I like that camaraderie. I like the teamwork. And I know you're somebody who does too. But so you got into the lighting thing. Who was your mentor there?
Some of it was self-taught. Mm-hmm. Some of it was going to,
Because you'd been through the theater, so you knew some
but really just that one production
that
fall
one
of,
time. Okay.
freshman in high school.
Okay.
Some of it was self-taught. AFI, American Film Institute,
Sure.
had some courses in Washington, D.C. So I took some lighting courses while I was in college, drive up nights and weekends to do that. But I ended up shooting television news for about a year and a half. Left when I'd kind of definitely made the break there.
Right.
Audio behind, picture in front of me.
Yeah.
I learned a lot on that from a business side as well. And then I started freelancing. So
Wow.
I had
And how old were you now? What age were you?
This was, early 20s.
Early
so
20s.
It's about the time I was ready to graduate from college. I remember so during college I started working in freelancing. I also kind of dropped back to part-time for a while at college.
Right.
And I had just enough credits to do that I really needed to go one more semester full-time. Because I knew if I went another part-time one and had 2 credits left, I'd never get it done.
That's very smart.
So
Self-knowledge.
My last fall in school, I took a full load, and I missed my maximum amount of classes for each subject because I was freelancing, or else. So it's like if you were allowed so many cuts, that's exactly how many I had.
Wow.
But that was my best semester grade-wise, so I guess I had figured it out by then. But I had started freelancing, and a couple local production companies would use me, and
And this is, give me the city that you're
Richmond,
in.
Virginia.
In Richmond, Virginia. Yes.
So when I graduated, or finished my coursework and graduated, the only job offer I got was from a television station in Fort Wayne, Indiana, to go shoot news there. And I was
oh my God.
I'm from South Florida. The high that day that I called them and said no. And by the way, back then there used to be this magazine called Broadcasting.
Yes.
The only job, there was no internet, there was no, the only way to get a job was to look at the listings. And it might have been a weekly, but it might have been a monthly publication. I don't remember which. The listings in the back of that. And it was like, you call them up, you send them a resume, you send them a 3/4-inch tape that, had some stuff.
A long process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was the spring of 1985, and the only job offer I got was from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to start my own company for a little while.
Yeah.
And then seek employment later. So I bought a 1-ton van, bought a quartz package, leased a Pee Wee Dolly, because we were on the East Coast.
You could lease them, they don't make you go pick them like they do here.
Well,
in
the closest Pee
Angeles.
was either 2 hours north in Washington, D.C., or 7 hours south in Atlanta. So
Wow.
I had the only other Dolly on the East
Wow.
Coast, per se.
Good business move right there for yourself.
And I've never Well, I still haven't worked a regular job.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's success. That is
I'm
success
not sure,
right there.
but it's been fun.
Yeah.
I've been in so many places, and that the general public can't go.
Oh.
I've traveled most of the United States and a little bit internationally for work.
We're
and-
Walter Mitty's. We get to go and play like we're something else or be in a different world for a day, usually. You
Yep.
know, you're in the CEO's office, or then you're on a ship somewhere, or, maybe you're doing, aerials or something like that. Hold on just a sec. Let me go back to when you started the van, though, because this is interesting to me. I did the same, very similar
We have
thing.
similar paths.
Yes, absolutely. I sort of took it on the other end of the age cycle than you did. I was like, I was 50 when I started Burnies Grip and Lighting, and I had gotten into the business 10 years before that. But when you went to buy the van, did you have enough base knowledge to know, I need this in my van to become a good lighting cameraman or practitioner on that? Did you have a good idea of what you were doing?
American Cinematographer magazine.
Okay.
I read the lighting setups.
Everything.
There was no YouTube. There was no internet.
Right.
Back then, it was really an apprentice type
And
situation.
I think it still is very much.
But the apprentice work can almost be done on nights and weekends because if someone is diligent, and there's tons of, I used to follow photographers a lot because they are ones that are crafting light.
Right.
There used to be a thing called the Black Book. It was basically commercial photographers that put ads in this book, and I think it came, maybe there was 2 editions a year, an East Coast and a West Coast, and it was, I want to say $200 for me to buy it.
Oh, wow.
But I'd buy them each time, and I'd wear the pages out, looking at at the images.
Yeah.
Annual report photographers. I'd get all the annual reports that I could get because I'd look at their images.
Oh my gosh.
And
That's
it's
awesome.
it was a lot easier for me to study a still image than
Than a
movies
movie
or
and-
commercials
yes,
or so.
absolutely.
are so
I
quick.
completely agree with that. So you really took the bull by the horns here. You were training yourself to do this, and you were finding those avenues and pieces of material that you could understand and you can assimilate.
Right.
Yeah, that's something. What, maybe 98% of the people never do?
I think they do. I think they do, especially now because we're bombarded
Well,
with it.
now it's different, but
Yeah.
even back then, but yes, now I always believe that now if you don't have the information, it's because you really don't want it, right? I mean, if you want the information, you may not get 100%, but you'll get very, very close to 100%.
So back to the package, it was experimentation. I had worked basically a half a year as a freelance, almost a year as a freelance person. I knew what some of the production companies had in Richmond. I thought, okay, what don't they have? What are they getting from out of town?
Right.
Dolly was one.
Gotcha.
So-
And that's a good move.
So I figure if I had the Dolly and had some track,
You're going to get a call.
yeah.
You're gonna get a
if for
call.
no other reason, that got me on the set.
Absolutely.
But everything was different back then. I mean, you'd light interviews with 2K open faces.
and
more than one of them.
Oh, I remember well.
You know, and
you were shooting on what at that time? A Betacam?
No,
or-
well, on the commercial side, mostly 16
So
in
you-
that
so you were
market,
still
but
into
some
16,
some
yeah.
35 millimeter
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So I never sought another full-time gig in the industry. I just kept building and building and
You
up
started
and down.
getting, you had enough connections at that point. You had enough of the gear that people wanted. And in your little circle, you were able to, you knew enough people that people could hire you where you didn't have to worry about, hey, what am I going to do this month?
You know, I worried about that a lot because I started the business from the opposite, the back/wrong side.
Okay.
I knew what I liked to do.
Yes.
I loved lighting, but I also loved organization.
Yes.
So I was always reaching for jobs that I wasn't quite equipped for.
Yeah.
And would do spreadsheets and have multiple sub-rental places and things
Yeah.
like that. I shouldn't say this. I loved the mechanics of it almost more than the creative side of it. So, but back then,
Interesting.
because film sensitivity and early days of video cameras, because obviously did a lot of corporate stuff. There was a lot of big, it certainly wasn't like Orange County or LA or Southern California or California in general, but it surprises me now that I live out here,
Yeah.
how close we were as far as technology and who was using what.
Yes.
But you needed a lot of light. So when you have a lot of light, we didn't carry many Inkies 200 watts with us.
No.
Because,
no.
that was kind of like a mag light.
That
now.
was a luxury. Yeah,
Well, I mean, they just
you
wouldn't
just
show
had a
up.
little light. Yeah, you could do some if you were in an
It
environment
was
that
a
would
monstrous amount of
Yeah.
open face 2Ks and 1Ks when we
Yes.
started, and
Yes.
that means you also need power.
work. Yeah.
So I bought power cabling and distro from the very first day,
Wow.
thinking that this is a lifelong investment.
Yeah.
Then, of course, two years later, the NEC electrical code comes in and changes the cable we use, because we were using welding cable and Tweakos back then.
Oh boy.
And everything was a tie-in with
Yeah.
Trico clamps.
Yeah.
It was...
that changed it up real fast.
Well, the cabling did
The
for sure.
cabling, yeah,
We actually
yeah.
had much, it's much safer now.
Yeah,
Much safer.
I agree. You know what, John? We're going to come right back. We're going to take a little break right now.
Are you trying to make money here?
Well, yeah. I wished I could figure out how, John.
Okay, we'll talk about that when we come back.
All right, buddy. Very good. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Bernie. I own Burnies Grip and Lighting, San Diego Grip and Lighting, and Los Angeles Grip and Lighting. We pride ourselves on not only renting you the best equipment, but also giving you the best crews. And one of our core values here at Burnies Grip and Lighting is that we give you the highest production value in the world. And remember, people used to say national, local. No, we present world-class production value on every set. We also know budgets are very tight these days, and you've got 10 hours to get what you need in the can. We move ahead, we move fast, and we know what you need. When you rent from Burnies Grip and Lighting, you have a partner on your production for that day that is making sure you are well taken care of. So anytime you're in Southern California, give us a call at 714-609-3545, and we'll take very good care of you. See you on set. Hey everybody, we're back here with John Nelson. And John Nelson just telling us how he got his start. And of course, the kind of the theme here today is not only how do you get in production, what do you do when you want out? And John is maybe not, if I'm correct, you're 90% out. You're 10% still in.
I haven't been on set in about, certainly somewhere in 2016.
Okay,
So
gotcha. So that's your gauge right there. You know what? Just before we broke, you said something that was very fascinating to me. You loved lighting, but you loved organization as well. And you were a business major while you were in college. And here I can really relate, John, because that's something I came from an entirely different industry before I came here. Mine was automobile imports. Mm-hmm. So we would have 10,000 automobiles on the lot. They all had to go to, each one of them had to go to an individual place with individual accessories and color schemes and all of this. So I had to be highly organized and organized labor as well as product,
mm-hmm.
With answering to 5 different clients too. So I had a job that really required me to be on top of all kinds of things. And I loved that challenge. It was maddening, but I loved it. And you can understand that, I know.
Yes.
Tell me about the organizational side and how you approached that and the benefits it paid off.
I'll tell you a story that happened. In my last semester, senior in college, the one that I'm working most of the time, but still made my best grades.
Sure.
I happened to be there. Basically, they brought in a head of industry each spring to be on campus for a week.
Okay.
And this individual was in one of my marketing classes. And I admit it was not me that asked the question, but one of my classmates asked, what has been the most beneficial thing for your career? And this individual thought for a minute, and he said, I carry a notebook with me all the time. He said, every conversation I have, I make a note of it. He said, I fill up notebooks, and at the end of the year, I tear them out, punch holes in it, and put in a 3-ring binder. That very night, I went out and bought a notebook.
Wow.
So when I've been talking to you on the phone, or maybe we're having
Right.
lunch. Sometimes I have
And
it with me at
I've
lunch.
seen you do that. Absolutely.
If nothing else, it's in the car. I'm trying to graduate now to be an electronic instead of paper guy.
Right.
I'm about halfway there.
Yeah.
But that has made the biggest difference in my life.
Wow.
Because, especially in our industry, we have a lot of, our industry, like I'm still in it.
Yeah,
I-
no, you
a lot
are.
of a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, hey, this and that, and you're always quoting numbers or getting quoted numbers,
Oh.
and it doesn't necessarily mean money numbers. It's like, I'm going to have 5 of these there, or 2 of these. I need 4 of these.
Yeah.
I write that down.
That's a great
So
idea.
a month later, a week later, or even a year later, I can go back to that, and I could be wrong. I may have misheard you how many we need or
Right.
what it's going to cost, but at least it's not my memory.
Exactly. You've got something.
That has been the biggest thing in my life.
Wow. Very
And also,
interesting.
I think there's that learning thing, because you hear it, but when you write it down and also have looked at it,
You retain it better. You retain it better.
and so I don't
yeah.
worry about that kind of stuff because I know I've got it in a notebook.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really, really good advice. That's really good advice to anybody out there. I know as I get busy, and this is a fault of mine, is that I find myself sometimes, instead of slowing down and really digesting the information, I'm just trying to manage it. I'm just, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll get to that in 2 weeks, or, I'll take care of that. I'll do it. I'll make a text, just try to divert the information to where it needs to go and stuff, without really, and not everything takes assimilation, but there's a lot of things people are telling me that I should assimilate. I should think about more, and I don't write it down. That's a very good point.
And the other thing is to ask. I've always asked a lot of questions.
Yes.
I'm inquisitive. I want to know how this works and that works, and how did you start your business and things
Yeah.
like that. I am
Yes.
fascinated by learning information.
Yes, yes. As am I. It's the show, Burnies
Yes.
Applebox. And you know what? This brings up another point, too. It's something that I'll speak to probably at another time on Applebox. But is that one thing that I have found in our industry, and you'll understand this, John, is that as a group of industry professionals, we have a tendency to always gravitate towards the big, right? Who's the DP of this movie? You know what I mean? Who's the director of that movie? When the reality is, for most of our professional lives, we're not on a movie. We're not on something that's a $200 million budget. We're on somebody's little shoot that they're trying to get information and going. There are so many millions of people worldwide that are employed that way with people who are in our industry. That's who I want to talk to. I want to talk to the people who are in our industry who are making a living at it. Just like yourself. You're a perfect example of that. Self-starter, get out there in college. College couldn't teach you what you were going to do, but you taught yourself what you were going to do. Those are the people that this show is for, and that's what the Applebox Network is for, actually.
It's funny. You and I, we maybe shouldn't talk about this, but we've had this conversation over
Sure.
lunch several times.
Yep.
How the bread and butter of what we did was the smaller stuff, not the big stuff.
Absolutely.
I was a multiple truck owner, multiple generator owner, had
Yep.
camera packages. We even had like the first portable Avid in Virginia.
Awesome.
As I remember, it was like 11 cases.
Yes. Yes.
I had a
yes.
van that was a cargo van that it would barely fit in.
Wow.
But it was a way for producers to, I was the first call for several producers that were doing 4 jobs a year or so.
Yeah.
Editing in the post-production was always the bugaboo.
Yeah.
They were renting time at $100 an hour. So I said, well, if I buy one of these, would you use it? So I did.
Sure enough. That's awesome. So you
but
saw that opportunity and jumped on it.
I've and a lot of opportunities like camera cranes and things like that that I've had over the years. It's things that I wanted to employ on the production, but then you've got to get the production
To buy it.
to see the same vision
Yes.
almost.
Yes. Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
yes, it's quite, and I've never worked on movies. I've day played on movies.
Yep.
And I've been on some like movie of the week television shows
Right.
that I was on for the duration, but for the most part, all of my work has been making images to sell stuff.
Yes. Bingo. Me too. I mean, I've occasionally flirted with a movie or a TV show. Never been on a regular full-on. One little low indie movie I was. on for the full range. But you know, it is so true, and this is something that's so difficult to communicate to people who are not inside the industry too. And this is something because it. And here's the thing, and here's the truth. I make my money on the small shoots,
Yep.
but I post the big ones on Facebook.
Right.
Or something, you know, if it's just a one interview thing, I'll come back, get the whole set, do something people can understand. But so many people do not understand outside of this industry that the absolute majority of the money, work, and learning comes from outside of movies or television or entertainment. You know, now inside of movies, television, and entertainment, it's a humongous industry. I'm not,
But it's a different industry.
but it's a different industry
than I've been in.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's once again part of Burnies Applebox Network. That's the audience we're talking to, is that group, you know.
And yes, we're technicians, we're craftspeople, we're business people for providing gear. But in reality, we're all there each day so that the person that has hired the agency can make some money
Yes.
and get the word out.
Absolutely. The money chain goes from us all the way through the system. In other words, when I'm on a set, when I'm doing something, I want the producer to make money off of the budget that they have for that thing. I don't want them to spend every cent and not have anything left over. Because I know, in my theory, is, and I'm sure it's yours as well, if they've hired me and I've done a good job for them and they can see the savings and the value, then they're going to call me back. And that's my only job, is to do a great job on the look, but get the call back. Because if I don't have that call back, I really haven't accomplished anything.
You know, another thing that took me a lot of years to realize, we are also in the entertainment business.
I know what you're going to say.
Because that business owner or advertiser, he could have chosen a lot of different agencies, and the agencies could have chosen a lot of different production companies.
Absolutely.
But they're out on set, and they may think it's cool and fun,
Yeah.
but they'd rather be back taking care of the myriad of emails and details.
Right.
So we need to do our job on set in a way that creatively makes it happen.
Yeah.
But also in a way that is fun for the folks that are writing the checks.
It makes it fun. It makes it fun.
Because if the folks didn't have fun with that check that they wrote, they may think of different avenues.
Boy.
And that goes all the way down to the bottom.
John, you make such a great point.
No, you made this point also because you wrote a book about this. If I'd only had that book, you know, back when I was starting out.
You could write that book and several more, I'm sure.
But it's, you know, it took me a long time to realize, and it's every interaction.
Yeah,
You know,
it's every interaction.
maybe I
Yes.
should park 10 spaces away from the studio door instead of right next to the door, even though I got there first and I could park right there, because there's some other people that, you know, A, may have more stuff to carry.
Right.
Or B, you know, it's like if production
you're
is
paying
not
for that
cheap.
studio, paying for the production,
You ought to have
you might want to park next to the door.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
No, you know what?
And also, if you're a production person that
Yeah.
drives a car that might drive attention,
Yeah.
maybe you ought to park it around the block so he doesn't think that that's where your day rate money's going.
Yeah, if you're the DP, maybe not come up in your Mercedes,
yeah.
right?
Show up in a Lyft or an Uber.
Yeah, that'd be a great thing. But you know what? It is such a good point with that, John, because and this is the way I've described it too. We're the show at the show. You know, that's what I've told my guys. I go, you know, when everybody is sitting around set and we're lighting the set, you know, and we're putting it on, they're listening to us. That client who is not, maybe even not been on set before, but certainly is maybe they only come on the set once or twice a year. They're listening, they're seeing the workflow, they're observing the individuals because they're listening to us talk in a language that they probably don't understand everything. You know, it could also be easy, and this I'm remembering my first days on set, to not understand that people, when you're watching them work, they don't look like they're working, but they're actually working, you know. So I think that you have to keep that in mind, and you have to make that a good experience for them. And if I take care of my client's client, my client's going to take care of me.
Yep.
It's that simple. And you understood that early on.
Not early enough.
No, well, we all have a learning curve there. You know, but just let go back because you mentioned it, and I did want to talk to you about this. At your highest height, of all of your equipment when you were going strong, when the machine was just humming? What did you have? Give me sort of a bird's eye view of the equipment.
5-ton, 3-ton. Also had we had a couple corporate studios in town, so they don't need a truck, but the gear needs to get there.
Yes.
So I had a, I don't know, 24 foot trailer that we'd also pack stuff in and
Okay.
park it on their property.
Sure.
2 motion picture generators, high-end video camera, high-end film. You know, we might have had a camera crane. I mean, you know, I'm not quite sure what
Some
everything
things
was.
came in and went out. Yeah.
Being in a small town like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the 50th, 48th television market or whatever.
Okay.
I was 2 hours south of Washington, D.C., 2 hours west of Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Sure.
Used to do a ton of work down in North Carolina till there were people like us that started up down there.
Yeah.
Out to West Virginia as well, a little bit in Maryland, but there were quite a few players in Washington, D.C. area. Business goes up and down.
Yeah.
So sometimes if something sat for a while, I sold it.
Yeah.
But also technology changed.
Oh.
So,
you know that.
you know, it's the up and down. I mean, even like, you know, sometimes the same fixture changed, like a 1200 HMI. It used to be a sealed beam car headlight almost, and now, you know.
And that changed up totally.
Right, and it's still changing.
Yes.
You know, we used to have to put lenses
Oh
in,
my
now we've got
gosh.
some focusing ones. So I had to change a lot because I funded my business poorly in that I always had a high debt load.
Yeah.
And so that if I was to offer any advice, it's like buy for cash or
Don't lease.
Don't lease. I mean, you know, it's
Yeah. So
when I bought my first video package, I was the only one outside of a production. I was the only independent in that area that had Sony broadcast gear.
Wow.
And so I paid.
What year was that?
That was 1990, if I'm correct.
Okay.
Quite
early on.
And I owed Bank of Japan checks every month for, I mean, you know, Sony Finance, and I kind of got started on that game. The next camera came out, and you had to have that. Well, now we can, you know, now cameras come out once every 9 months.
Well, and there's a new camera on the market every month, it seems.
No, it's not yet there.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't used to hear about it till it was physical.
Right.
Now it's theoretical.
Now it's theoretical. Yes. Yeah. It's GoFundMe. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Kickstarter.
It really kind of is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I understand that because there's a lot of industries that place orders based on perceived demand.
Well, there's a lot more innovation in the marketplace today. There wasn't this level of innovation. I remember it was that design Sony obsolescence that they would put the cameras out. So just about the time, as you were saying, you paid them off.
Yeah.
There was the next camera was in demand, or you were 6 months behind getting it.
I think the first camera I had for probably 5 years, and after I moved to California, I don't think I kept one for more than 9 months or so.
Yeah, I'll bet. I think you're right.
Now, I also am an early adopter.
Yeah, you are.
I've also learned that if you sell things before the new one comes out, you know, sell things while it's still hot.
Yeah, then you get a much better return on that.
And I can use that chunk of
experimented.
money toward the next one.
Sure. And that's really the way you have to play the game these days, because you can't fall in love with the technology. Don't do that. Use that technology for what it's good for and move on. And also, I think that there's so many times that we get caught in this mindset. We got to have the newest, you know, and that is spurred too by the clients, because a client, what do? They're going through their Facebook feed, their social media, whatever, and then they find out, hey, you know, I just heard about this new camera. I want to try that. Ring, ring. Hey, well, do you have the new?
And as a smaller company or a freelancer, I fell into that very easily.
Very easily.
Because if I'm trying to get new work,
yes,
and I tell them I have an Etch-a-Sketch 100,
right,
they don't really care about the Etch-a-Sketch 100.
No. They want the self-draw.
Yeah.
2000.
I mean,
yeah. So you do it to yourself. You know what I mean? And that's why I always come back when people talk about like. And this happens a lot in the DP realm, you know, because those are our leaders, if you will. Yep. You hire you get a director on board, then he hires a DP. DP brings in the crew.
That was the old days before the internet. But
yes, right. But you know, when that would happen, you know, I mean, that's why I tell DPs, don't sell the technology. Sell the value. Sell your art. Sell your eye. That's what they want to buy. That's what they need to buy. You know, how many times have you seen it where you've been with somebody out there and you think, boy, we don't have much here. You know, there's not much work with. And this guy can just take a little something and make it look gorgeous. And Bill Holshevnikov, I probably watched Bill do that hundreds of times, you know.
But, you know, technology has changed that process. Give an example, you know, when we started out, it was open face lights through a frame or more of diffusion.
Yes.
Then came the soft banks, like the chimeras.
Yes.
But you still had light going everywhere.
Yeah.
So it was 2 to 4 C-stands around every source.
Right, you were boxing in the light.
Each side, top and bottom. Mm-hmm. Then the egg crates came.
Yeah.
And suddenly the C-stands, for a lot of
You
applications,
could pull back
could
on
go away
those.
or none.
Yeah.
So my lab, in the early 2010s, most of my work involved me going to John Wayne Airport to get on a plane. And my
Yes.
kit was underneath my seat in the plane.
Incredible.
No C-stands, no flags.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out what lights that can shape with.
Yes, yes, and that's what you do.
Yeah. Instead of blowing all over everywhere, you also use technology, because in that case, you don't want the Etch-a-Sketch 100 anymore.
Right.
You want a camera that can,
Right.
you know, has more sensitivity, but, you know, lensing technology to throw the background out of focus when
Right.
you're
There's
interview
so
in
much-
a cubicle.
Yeah.
We could never get that background out of focus.
Oh no, no,
before.
no.
But now
no.
with different sensor sizes and
you
stuff,
can do it.
We can.
You can do it. Yeah.
And the first thing we do now, usually, well, I did up to the end of last year.
Yeah.
If you're shooting cubicle land, my first question was, how many lights can I turn off here?
Yeah. Right. Right.
Because otherwise, I need the tent off over top to control.
Well, exactly. I need to. I do that all the time. It just, or you look at it and you go, the only thing I could do is take the direct light off. You know what I mean? I can't control the rest of the room. You know. But you know what, John? We're going to hold that thought, because we're going to come.
Gotta
right
make some more
back.
money?
Got to make a ton more
Okay.
money right
We'll talk
now.
about money when we come back.
Yeah, good. It's too bad I'm the guy paying the money, though. That's my only regret. All right, we'll be right back.
The Burnies workshop is fantastic. Burnies workshop is awesome. Burnies workshop is insightful.
Bernie, in one word, passionate maybe. You can tell he really cares a lot.
Bernie is a badass.
He's a great teacher. He has great stories, and I would recommend this to anyone. Not only someone like me who's starting day one, but you know, I feel that in any profession, as you sharpen your sword, it always gets sharper.
I think the best thing about this is the access to understanding how to run your business, how to actually be in this filmmaking industry and make money at it. Coming to this workshop, I think, is what actually gets you the tools to understand how to do that, how to get out there and sell yourself.
I thought that was really cool. I thought, he knows all the tricks in the book, and he knows how to show that to us and actually demonstrate it so we actually know what he's talking about.
I really like the hands-on experience. That's something that you don't find a lot. That's something you have to go on set a lot to just appreciate.
I know this is lighting seminar, but it's not only talk about lightings. He also share his business experience, personal experience, and guide us to what we should do, what kind of personality we should have in this business.
His stories, I think that they kind of say everything in a few example stories that he gives out from time to time.
I would recommend this workshop to anybody who's just brand new to the industry, people who just don't know the swing of it. A lot of this stuff they don't teach you in film school.
I deal with a lot of freelancers every day, a lot of peers that I went to school with, a lot of professionals in the field, and they all need to take this class because it puts you on the next level, on the next playing field.
Bernie's a great guy. Bernie's really authentic. Like everything he learns, everything he teaches, the way he handles himself, the way he deals with other people. He's a one-of-a-kind guy, someone I've never come across before in the industry, and someone I hope to emulate and hope that there are more people like him out there that can help.
Hey everybody, we're back with John Nelson. Hey John, how you doing, buddy? And John is giving us an overview of his career and how it went. And it's so fascinating to me, John, because you were really at the forefront of this industry, of being somebody who just graduated and started. Even before that, you were freelancing while you were in college. and then took that path of the individual owner in a market, Richmond, Virginia. And he built a business out there, and based on a lot of the same things I did here in Orange County, probably 10 years after you did them. So it's great to hear this. One thing I want to ask you about is technology, and let's kind of make it a now and or then and now.
Okay.
So let me just ask you this. When you first got your van and you started packing it with some quartz lights and you got your little package and you had a camera and stuff like that, how did you get jobs? And was it a phone call? Was there email? I mean, in the 90s?
No email. Yeah. Well, this was 1985.
1985. Okay, very good.
There were magazine ads.
Magazine ads.
And you had to have your artwork in 3 months ahead of time.
And this is where you're advertising.
Advertising in there, and then there was very little communication in that market between production company owners.
Yeah.
Because they were all scratching for the same dollars.
Sure.
That has changed
because
for the better.
Market was tighter. Then,
right. You know, the market really was a lot like Orange County.
Yeah.
I imagine Orange County back then and Richmond, Virginia,
were probably very similar.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Obviously now you have many more corporate headquarters out
Yeah.
here. But whereas Orange County is kind of like a sister to LA,
right?
Richmond, Virginia was a sister to Washington D.C.
Correct.
Just out of the television
Yes.
station range,
Yes.
you know, and then Virginia Beach was a bigger area, metro area as well.
Right.
So, but Richmond was the capital. You know, it was word of mouth, but also phone calls.
Mhm.
Direct mail worked best for me.
Yeah.
I didn't do it nearly enough, but if I send out postcards,
right,
I at least got a call and a day of work that paid for that postcard being sent out.
You know what? You just reminded me. I used to do that too.
Yep.
That's something I almost forgot about, sending out the postcard.
But it's the little technology. When I was shooting news for like that year and a half, my junior year in college, I would
Right.
work weekends. I had a normal shift, Saturday and Sunday. But if I wanted to pick up extra days, you know, if someone didn't show up or an exceptional news day,
yeah,
how do you get the call? How do they find me? Well, if they leave a message on my phone in the dorm,
you're not going to get that for a couple days.
So I got a pager.
So you got a pager.
That pager paid for itself over and over and over.
Wow.
Even if I only got a couple days more, you know, another shift,
that
a couple
was
more shifts a
huge.
month. Well, for a college kid, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a couple more meals at midnight.
Of course.
Then obviously voicemail came around because
Mhm.
you know the recording Panasonic voicemail
Oh,
machine.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was this was long before the phone company could
no,
do it for you.
believe me, my friend, I remember the days.
So
I remember
pager
the days.
voicemail.
Yeah.
I remember when the fax machine first came.
Yes.
That was like, okay, now we can do equipment orders. They can send me the stuff. I don't
Yes.
have to go over to their office.
Of course, those were the size of a Sherman
Well,
tank.
no,
back,
my first one was a small one, but it
Okay.
was thermal paper.
Yeah, thermal,
So-
I hate that.
So if you left it in the car,
Yeah.
it was black in like a matter of minutes. In Richmond, it gets hot in the summer.
Yes, right.
Then the copy machine you could own. I say two things really changed production in the markets like Virginia.
Mhm.
First was FedEx.
Okay.
Because before you had to order film, get it
Mhm.
shipped in versus by UPS.
You're right.
And then you had to send it back out to a lab. Sometimes the lab and the transfer house were in different towns or cities.
Wow.
So if you were going to do a better commercial than what the television station would do, you had
Right.
to plan weeks in advance.
Yeah.
There was no last minute
It was
thing.
very time consuming, right? It was like you had to really
because of the shipping. So FedEx
right.
changed that like
Okay.
literally overnight.
Yeah. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally. I
Yeah.
mean, that was a huge thing.
Right.
Smartphones and the cell phone was the other.
Well, that was a major shift change right there. And I remember, getting into it later certainly than you did. I remember for me it was, and I still to this day swear I got call sheets in the mail. People would send a call sheet out. Next week we're going to be here's your call sheet, and but the phone really, and I did the same thing. I got a pager. Well, what's the first thing you need after you get a pager? You got to make a phone call to the number they just sent you, right?
Carried some quarters with you.
Yeah, you carry some quarters. So the next thing I need is a cell phone.
Might have been dimes back then, but
yeah, I think it was quarters. At my age, it was quarters. But then had to get a cell phone. So then that prompted me to get the cell phone, you know, which was nice enough to get the jobs and everything like that. But then the emails started coming on.
The other thing I think that really changed was internet forums. Because before we were reading like American Cinematographer, you were reading what the big guys did.
Oh, absolutely.
And then through internet forums, I realized that this is just not a United States thing.
Yes.
This is a worldwide thing.
It's a world production
and just
market.
because I have scraped together to buy XYZ camera, there's somebody in many other countries that are also going through the same throes, like, you know,
Right.
how do I get through this menu, or how do I do this, or do you know there's a new kind of lamp for a 2K, or all this kind of stuff. Cinematography mailing list was based out here. It started from out here. Things like that. That was a real game changer.
And you know what? That's really taken for granted now. This amount of information that we have in the real world experience of somebody using it. It's one thing to get information from the company. It's a whole different thing to get information on how individuals handle problems with cameras, process, editing, all of those things from them.
You know, we could talk about marketing for a minute.
Yeah.
Because this also enabled little guys through the forums to kind of have relationship with other people that were trying to figure out a brand's product that might have been made by design engineers that had no idea how it was ever used.
World. Yes, yes.
So instead of us trying to call tech support at some company, and back then they didn't have a lot of
that was not a easy process.
Well, they didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
You know, just a consumer might need help.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
our job was to make it
our
and
job
sell
is to sell it. Yeah,
We make it
and what
and sell
you do
it.
with it after that is your business. Yeah, there was that mentality.
And now we're in this whole new realm of consumers being able to have a relationship with the brand.
Yeah, and consumers are not ashamed to be demanding.
Nope.
By any means.
Nope.
You know, is you take my money, I want this service. This is the value-added service.
And
I
it still
want.
isn't working well.
No, it's not. No,
this
it's not.
past in 2017 this year, I've been on the road a lot, in specifically the outdoor industry.
Yeah.
Of experience, I call it the experience outdoor industry. It's not the REI crowd. It's the people that are predominantly vehicle-based travel, but they're going places that the general public doesn't go.
Well,
and
yeah,
there's a lot of manufacturers making stuff still with the push attitude.
Yeah.
But the consumers, I mean, now
they're rebelling. Consumers are rebelling.
Well, we're a much more DIY, do-it-yourself now.
Yeah.
I mean, you would always call a plumber before Home Depot and Lowe's opened up.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Electrical stuff.
You didn't really
you'd
have.
never think about putting a dimmer in. Most people would never change that switch to a dimmer.
Well, you had the
before
little
Home Depot and Lowe's.
home neighborhood hardware stores.
Yeah.
They sold door handles and hinges and stuff like
but
that.
Nowhere near the extent of
Home
stuff.
Depot.
Well, that's
which
the
can
same,
sell you the whole
that's
system.
the same attitude now. I mean, you buy a camera, it's not ready to go. You got to buy pieces and parts and plates and this and that from 4 or 5 different manufacturers before it's ready to go.
Right.
It'll make an image.
Yeah.
But it's only half the price. Well, half the time now we're buying a product that doesn't have the final software in it even.
Well, and go to Red, you're buying a product that doesn't exist sometimes. You know what I mean? Even not to pick them out specifically, but anybody has that, is that process. You know, before we lose too much time here or we end, I want to talk about that process, though, that you went through, which is the reason that I think your story is so important to us, is that I know there came a point in your business, and it was along with your wife's career, certain changes came about that made you decide or take a bold leap to think, first of all, I don't want to be in, if I've got this right, any more debt. And second of all, I want to look beyond what I'm doing now. Tell me a little bit about that.
I'm going to postpone the debt one for another conversation sometime. Because my wife, it's part of our story. We were in a tremendous amount of debt, and we both realized at our point our marriage was failing, and it turned out we both were in incredible debt that we never even talked about, although we'd been married 10 years at that point.
Understood.
That's another story.
That's a different thing, yes.
I love this career. I love the industry.
Yeah.
But more so than the craft of it, I like the organization part.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I like thinking of things ahead of time.
Yes.
But I also like the fact that we're part of connecting brands with consumers.
Yes. Okay. And that is basically what we do.
And we're on the mechanical side of it.
Yes.
I had gone to school for the theoretical side of it.
Right.
And in October of last year, I had taken some time off to work on a couple personal projects. We recycled a house down right off the water in the beach. I mean, we did some things that no one else had done before on that, and a couple other personal building maker type things. So I was like, I didn't want to meet Bernie and only say yes, I've traveled the world, I've been inside nuclear power plants and caves and all this other kind of stuff for production. But I wanted to do something different that was even more challenging if I was up to it.
Sure.
So for the last 6-7 months, I've been marketing products to the outdoor industry. That may change to a different avenue. Not quite sure what the next thing is going to be.
Right.
But over my travels so far this year, I've been at events, meetups, or shows in front of probably 50,000 people. I've probably locked eyeballs with about 30,000 as they walked by.
Wow.
And I've had thousands of conversations. And it's not only about the products that I have that you might be interested in today. It's like, what do you do in your realm of passion? In this case, it's the outdoor industry.
Right.
And I have become unknowingly the face of the brand that I'm there to help that day or week or month.
Yes.
And it's been very interesting from the other side. You know, consumers want to have a bigger part in what goes on.
Right.
And in fact, that is sort of what drove you and I to be in business for ourselves. We wanted to have different tools.
Yes.
And so we started buying them.
Yes.
And we thought that someone else might want to use them too, so we started providing a way for them.
And pushing out there.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
So it's connection and relationship.
You know what, that is so good to hear you say that and talk about also going into the outdoor industry, because, you know, we do get, and this is very true for me, I get vision blinders on. You know what I mean? I look at the world relating to my knowledge of what I do. You know, I don't open that up. You're somebody who's opened that up and really looked outside of that. That's what I like.
I think
you know?
I think it's very important what we allow into our heads. It's what we read, what we watch, what media we listen to. But on the flip side of that, I think it's important that we kind of manage what we do outside of our regular work. I've always had some other projects. Now, mine was not an independent film or I want to go do this.
Right.
I've always kind of been involved in making things. So like there was a Christmas program that I worked on many, many years. We used to make, I thought up, designed, made a giant ornament each year that was like,
cool.
Was around 8 feet by 15 feet high each year.
Oh, wow.
So, but that was kind of like my dream project each year.
Yeah.
I got to run with that and take it. I think it's very important to have
those outside interests.
Outside interest aside from what you do each day.
Yeah.
And outside people too.
Yes. I think you're absolutely
Who are the people
right.
you're hanging around with that are, you know, feeding you good or bad into your life?
Right. That's very interesting. I just had a talk with my wife about this too, is that, you know, there's people that, if you're a person who's not trying to judge people all the time on the outside, you know, you might miss some of the warning signals and stuff, but there's times people come into your lives and you go, wait a minute, why am I going down this road with this person where that's not where my passion lies? Or, you know, maybe does this person have the best judgment? Do they have the best emotional stability? And why am I involved with them? You know, because it happens sometimes, and I know we've had those discussions between me and my wife, is like, let's be careful about what we're thinking, what we're talking about, who we're associating with, and because my wife, as you know, is an artist and stuff like that, and she's a go-getter, you know, and I think I've had a little influence on that. I think it was either join the club or go crazy.
Well, that's another thing.
Yeah.
Whose influence do you have? You know, how are you using that influence on other people? You've done great by it. You've written a book.
Yeah.
You've mentored newcomers along.
Sure.
Look at this program.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're doing more here.
You have visions of where you'd like this to go,
right.
But in reality, this is a help to people.
Yeah, and that's maybe that's where we end this and just say that is the bottom line. If your focus is on helping people, you'll probably do fairly well no matter what you do, whether you're in this industry or you decide to migrate on to another.
And don't be afraid to jump ship.
Yes,
Even,
right?
even if you don't want to stay in the production industry, because I've been on several different roles.
Yeah.
Or you just may say, I love this, but there's something more.
Yes, and that's kind of what you did. Yeah.
That's what my license plate says.
John,
it's been great, Bernie.
So great. Every time I sit down with you and have a conversation, this is just another example right here of it.
We're usually at a local fish restaurant.
Yes,
so.
we are. We are. We both like fish. So you know what? It's something. Thank you for stopping in today, John. Where can people get a hold of you and tell us your company or what you're representing right now?
I still have my productionhero.com website up.
Okay.
It turned into a blog many years ago. And I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn.
Okay.
My wife and I started a blog years ago that we may revive at some point. It was about our journey out to California.
Oh, that's great.
It was called Our View from the Road.
Okay.
So that may come back later this year, this fall sometime.
Productionhero.com is the best place to get a hold of you.
Or Facebook is the best.
Yeah, Facebook.
Because we're all, there's umpteen million of us
It's Facebook's world. We just live
Right.
in it, John.
Or if you want to find out more about us individually, Our View from the Road.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks again, buddy.
Let's go lunch.
All right, let's do it. All right, we're good. That's it for Burnies Applebox. We'll be back 2 o'clock next Friday. Come on down.
Cut. That's a wrap.